From epic romantasy to a little bit of dystopian and some cowboy romance, I had a great reading month in the month of May. It was Escape the Readathon, which was hosted by Lexi from Books with Lexi. There are rumors that she's going to be bringing it back again next year, so I will leave all of that down in the description box. But I had a fantastic month. I read some of my best books of the year here. I had so many 5 stars. It was absolutely wild and incredible, and I am just hoping that that energy carries over into June. So before we get into all of the books and my thoughts on them, let me share a few stats with you guys. In the month of May, I read my pretty much usual amount of books, which was 13 books, as well as 5,769 pages and 45 hours of audiobook. It's a little more audio than I usually listen to, but also not as much as I've been being, so I am doing a little bit better with my goal of reading more books with my eyes, but I did do some immersion reading as well, so that definitely amped up the audio time, even though I was also reading with my eyes. My average rating was a 4.1 in May. I was living my best life in the month of May. That's the highest average rating I think I've ever had, which is absolutely incredible. I started 7 series, whoopsie, but a lot of them are like first books in a series, so I am caught up. I didn't like start super long series for the most part. I read 3 diverse reads, and then for my sources, 7 of them were audiobook, 1 ebook, 2 physical books, and 3 mixture books, like more immersion reading. For my ratings, I gave out 1 3-star, 2 3.5 stars, 6 4 stars, 1 4.5 star, and 3 5 stars in the month of May. It was an amazing month. Most of mine were romantasy. I did read 6 romantasy, but I also read 2 horror, 3 romance, and 2 thriller mysteries, which I feel like has been pretty low for me throughout the year, so it was nice to see those like extra stats as well. As far as like how big my books were, most of them were in the 300 to 500 range, but I also read 4 chunky books over 500 pages. I had a pretty even mix of new to me and read from before authors. 7 of them were read from before, but 5 were new to me, and 1 of them was a debut author. So it was a great month. I'm so happy with the way that May turned out. So let's get into me mostly gushing about all of these books. We'll start off with my first read of the month, which was The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. I read this for one shelf where I was reading the shelf with the most Lexi favorites on it. Lexi gives me some amazing book recommendations. These were not all handpicked by her, but she definitely is where I get pretty much all of my thriller and horror recommendations from. I gave this one a 3.5 in the end, but as I sit with it, it could go up to a 4-star. I really liked the latter half of this. The beginning was a bit too slow for my personal taste, but once we got into the action, and it became unhinged, wild. This is following a woman who is in the outs with her best friend. They're both writers, and they both get accepted to this very prestigious writing retreat that nobody ever gets into. She's like, I can't miss out on this opportunity, even though I can't stand this girl. I don't want to be in the same room with her, but I'm gonna go anyway. And they end up going, and this just crap hits the fan. I don't want to tell you what all happens in this because I feel like going in knowing nothing other than it's a writing retreat is probably the best way to go, but it's wild, it's unhinged, and I had a really good time with it. Then I read Overgrowth by Mira Grant. This is the Owl Crate sci-fi edition of this book. I have reversed the dust jacket just because I like the purple a little bit better, but I ended up really enjoying this book as well. I gave it a 3.5, 4-star as well. Some of these, like, I can't fully decide on my rating of, is it a 4-star, is it a 3.5 star? And honestly, in the end, it's probably just going to be how much did it stick with me. But this one definitely has a pretty heavy societal hand in it. It has a lot of really good discussions, especially like our world in general right now. And it's about a girl that since she was 3 years old has been telling people that she is an alien and the aliens are coming to take over Earth, but no one believes her. And she's like, well, you're just gonna have to wait and see, but the aliens are coming. And so of course we kind of go through the book of her telling people this, living her life, and then the alien invasion. This is much more heavily sci-fi than I thought it was gonna be. I expected it to be more like sci-fi horror, kind of like Into the Drowning Deep, but it definitely leans more sci-fi commentary heavy than it does the horror aspects. And I think for me, I just really missed the horror. I needed that to make this a new all-time favorite, but in the end, I did really enjoy it, and I would definitely be recommending it. Then I read Midnight is the Darkest Hour. This was generally fine, but it was a little too slow literary for me. I expected it to be more of a thriller. It feels more just like general fiction to me. We have a girl that is a part of the church in the bayou of Louisiana. She wants to get out, but that's just not something that's really going to happen for her. Something ends up happening and she is assaulted, and one of her friends steps in to save her, but they end up killing the guy in the process. And so they dump his body, and they've had this looming hanging over their heads their entire lives, jump to the present where now a body has been pulled out of the swamp and they don't know who it is or what's gonna happen, and it's the aftermath of all of that. This got a 3-star from me. Honestly, if the audiobook hadn't been so easy to listen to, although the narrator was not great, I don't think I would have continued this. It was just generally okay, but I never felt in it with our main character, and because we were so character focused, it was hard for me to get invested. Not that there wasn't things that I should have felt for the main character, and I could see the author trying really hard to make that happen, but for some reason I never personally connected, so it was harder for me to get fully behind this book. Also read one of my most anticipated books of the year, which was When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. Nat Cassidy is an auto-buy incredible author for me. I have read all of his backlist, Mary, Nestlings, and personally I think that Nestlings is still my favorite, with Mary coming in a close second, but I did really like When the Wolf Comes Home as well. It feels different than his other books, where it's more slapstick, more like fast-paced, on the run, rather than his typical slower moving, atmospheric, discussion heavy horrors, and I think I missed that a little bit. It was a little too breakneck, a little too goofy for me personally, so I ended up giving it a 4-star. I think it was a lower 4-star for me, but I can still appreciate greatly what this book did. We're following a girl that is got some daddy issues, and she's trying to process the death of her father when a young boy ends up in her yard terrified, and he says that a wolf is after him. Some really weird things happen. They go off on the run, and she is trying to protect this child with someone chasing them, and there's a lot of weird things going on. It is very odd, but in a very entertaining way. I was so engaged trying to figure out what the heck was going on. Part 1 was good, part 2 was where we got really weird, part 3 I was back in it, and then part 4 is actually quite short. And I think that if you are somebody that loves a super fast-paced horror that is not afraid to be kind of quirky, you will really appreciate this, especially if you found his previous works too slow and meandering. But I personally loved the slightly slower aspect. He does have an author's note in this as well, which I would 100% recommend reading for all of his books. It really gives a lot of context to what his goal was for the book and helps to set the stage even better. I wouldn't read it before reading the book, but after, it brings up my enjoyment so much more, knowing where he was coming from and what the vision for this was, and I can definitely see it after reading his author's note. Then we got into like my favorite era, where I read so many good romantasy back to back to back. It was wild. So I read Shield of Sparrows and absolutely adored this book. Yes, it's slow. Yes, there's a lot of travel, but like I was in the characters and in like the atmosphere of this book from the beginning. This is following a girl, Odessa, who is the spare princess. She knows that she's not really going to be used for much. She's just be married off to the king's general, while her sister is the one that is going to be the Shield of Sparrows and marry this foreign prince in order to keep the peace between their nations. When the prince comes to collect her sister, he says, no, I want her instead, and takes Odessa as his bride against her will. We have a world where there are lots of monsters, and then we have the Guardian, who is a monster hunter that is the right hand to the prince, and I just loved the Witcher vibes in this. I thought that the monsters were so cool. I liked the found family aspect. The ending had me in a chokehold. Like, I did not see the very last chapter coming. One of the reveals I definitely saw coming from the beginning, but one of them at the end, I was like jaw on floor. I ate this book up, had the best time with it, and of course it was a 5-star read for me. Then I moved on to one of the other internet's like new booktube darlings, and that was Silver Elite by Dani Francis. Been a lot of controversy around this book, I know, where some people are not loving it, saying the writing is not great, other people are eating it up. I was one of those people that ate it up. This is definitely a lust-forward book where they are really wanting each other like the whole time, but the dystopian aspects to this book and the relationship in general, I just had a lot of fun with. It is like a military academy type setting. We have a world where people with telepathic abilities are considered like the worst. You are killed off or you are put into servitude if you have these abilities, and so they keep them very hidden, but anytime they use them, they get like silver streaks in their veins, and so it's very obvious when they're using their abilities, and they have to be super careful. Our main character doesn't get those streaks. She's an abnormality. She is super powerful, and she doesn't really know why, but she has been completely hidden away. When her guardian is captured, and she kind of sort of reveals herself in a crowd where she gets offered to be a part of this military academy, and I think that in the beginning for me it was a little bit slow. I needed a little bit more of the dystopian world. I actually really liked the romance, and so when that kicked in the second half of the book, I was like in it. This was a 5-star vibes book for me, probably more of like a 4.5 if we're just rating it off of like my gut initially, but I think I'm rounding it up to a 5 because I just had so much fun. The dystopian aspects of this, I do think you need to read, because there are a lot of commentary in here about the oppressive nature of a government and things like that, and it just is really like the nature of a dystopian book. Do I wish that the dystopian elements had been a little bit more at the forefront? Yes, I do. I think they're coming. I think we got to see a lot of that that at the end, and I cannot wait to see where book 2 is going to go. It has one of my favorite tropes in here, and so I had fun. I think it was a good time. I did DNF What Blooms from Death. I don't normally talk about my DNFs, but I did have a DNF in between all of these 5 stars before reading another 5-star of one of my best books of the year, which was Windweaver by Julie Johnson. This book blew me away. Everybody was yelling at it. Cassidy's the one that convinced me to pick this up, and I'm so glad that she did. I almost skipped this Fairy Loot edition, and I would be devastated if I had done that, because this book is incredible. It is a fantasy forward romantasy where we have elemental magic. Fae and halflings are considered like the bane of the existence in the kingdom where the mortals are ruling, and we start off with our main character, who is a halfling, being taken and about to be sentenced to death. She gets a reprieve and taken by, I think his name is Scythe, and he is whisking her away onto some kind of journey, and she doesn't know what's going on, but he's like, look, I'm not gonna hurt you, but I need you to come with me. Come to find out, she is the Windweaver, which is a very powerful elemental, and there is a war going on. It was just so good. The character work in this was absolutely incredible. The banter in this was incredible. The romance was great. The just like found family vibes were amazing. I had the best time with this. I need the second book yesterday, because I cannot wait. I loved this so much. Of course, this was a 5-star as well. I then did an impromptu 48-hour readathon where I read nothing but cowboy romance and had the time of my life doing it. I first read Wildside, which is not really a cowboy romance. I know it's kind of like cowboy adjacent, but it's close enough. And it was the last book that I needed to read in the Rose Hill series. It's currently out. This one's following a wrestler, and then one of the like main side characters from the previous 2 books. Her sister passes away, and she wants custody of her nephew, but this guy that owns the building that her sister was living in is like, no, the nephew is my custody per her will, and they are fighting about it. They decide to get married in order to kind of work out this custody battle and end up falling for each other in the process. In the beginning, I really liked the enemies kind of vibes in here. I thought that those were great. I liked that she was touching on some darker themes. Normally these are very like happy, and even if there are darker conversations, for the most part they're pretty quick, and this one definitely has a lot of darker themes that are talked about, but the tension went away way too fast for me, and I think that I just needed a little bit, I needed that to last longer. It felt like a light switch flipped, and it didn't feel very organic, and then I just wasn't fully in the relationship after that. Even though arranged marriage of convenience is one of my favorite tropes, it just didn't hit in this one the way that I wanted it to, and the kid is a very prominent part of the story. If you like single parent romance, this may work really, really well for you. I thought it was very sweet, but I personally don't have kids, and it doesn't always resonate with me in the same way that it can others, and so I just didn't love that aspect of the story. It just didn't pull me in as much as I wanted to. There was nothing wrong with it. I think it was extremely well done. I just wasn't as engaged as I wanted to be. The wrestling part was fun. It was different. It was something I don't normally see, but I think when I gave this book a rating in my vlog, I actually said 4 stars. Since I've been sitting on it, it feels more like a 3-star to me. That was like right after, but as I've thought about this book more, it's just not really sticking with me, and I think I'm gonna lower this to a 3-star. Also read Swift and Saddle by Lila Sage. I gave this one a 4-star, and I think it was just fun. It wasn't as deep as I wanted it to be, although I think that there were some really good discussions had in here about depression and previous marriage and body image and things like that. This is following Ada, and she is just gotten a divorce, and she comes to work on a remodel for Wes, who is one of the brothers of the main character in the first book, and he instantly, they hit it off. They get a little hot and heavy in a bar. She runs away, and then she realizes when she gets to work the next morning that that was with her boss. She's absolutely mortified, but of course they start to get closer over the course of this. And again, at the beginning of this, I was in it. By the time they got together, I was a little less in it, hence the 4-star, but I still think it was so much fun. It was such a fast read, and it hit exactly what I needed it to in the moment. Then a couple of books that I don't own. Cash by Jessica Peterson is coming out. It's being republished from an indie version. It is an enemies to lovers where our main character recently lost her father, and she goes to collect the money from his ranch, only to find the ranch hand says, no, it was promised to me, you can't have it, and they kind of go back and forth on who is supposed to be getting this ranch. One of the clauses in his will, though, giving it over to her, was that she has to go and work it for a period of time to kind of learn about things, and she's like, no, I am a city girl, I don't want to do this, but she needs the money, so she decides to go through with it. They get closer over the course of things, but I didn't feel the enemies enemies part of the enemies to lovers in this. This one is a 3.5 star from me. It was fun. It was a good time. It was a quick and easy read, but I definitely wanted the tension to be a little bit better. I didn't just love our main character either. She was generally fine, but I don't know, there was just something about it that I didn't fully click with. The found family aspect to this I do think was really, really well done, as it is in a lot of contemporary romances. There was also a trope at the end that I really didn't like that felt like it was thrown in. So while there were moments in this that I really, really enjoyed, there were definitely some things that really, really bugged me too, which is why it ended up being a 3 star. That was the end of my cowboy romance era, and then we went into reading a few things that were more out of my comfort zone. I started off with Night in the Moth by Rachel Gillig, and I had some hot takes involving this one. I ended up giving it a 3.5 star. I think that this book is extremely well written. I think that the atmosphere is incredible. The found family vibes are great. The characters are well written, and you're like, Mel, if you say all of those nice things, why did you give it a 3.5 star? Mostly because I was bored. I never connected with the characters, even though they were well done. I just was like, meh, they exist. They're doing things. Cool. I didn't really feel like there was a lot of stakes in the book. It didn't keep me on the edge of my seat. The plot wasn't like, oh my goodness, what's gonna happen next? So there just wasn't anything to like make me fully sad for the book, even though the atmosphere was 10 out of 10 incredible. I think that the gargoyle was so much fun. There were moments where I was really enjoying the banter to this as well. There was something about it I didn't click with, and that's perfectly okay. I see why this is people's best book of the year. I just wish that I had connected a little bit more with it. It definitely feels more adult than One Dark Window, so if that's something that you didn't love in that one and you were looking for something more adult, give this a try. I think it's extremely well written. I think it deserves the attention that it's getting, but it didn't click for me. So if you have similar reading taste to me where you need a little bit more plot instead of characters, then this may not be the perfect book for you. Next up, I read Ananthemma, I think that's how you say that, by Carrie Lake, and this one really surprised me. I will be getting the new edition when it's published in September. It is a horror romantasy involving a girl that lives in the human world, and she is considered shunned. She is an outcast because she was a baby left in the edge of the eating woods, which people are absolutely terrified of. In a different realm, we have Zavander, who is now working as an assassin for the king, but he has been cursed with, I think it was called sable fire, which is basically like a fire that kills instantly. It's completely uncontrollable, and he's trying to break his curse, and he needs her to be able to do it. There is a romance in here, although the romance I would not say is at the super forefront. It's definitely taking a backseat to more of the atmosphere and world building in this story. I think the world building was really, really cool. It was a little convoluted. The pacing kind of made it a little hard to follow sometimes, but I do think it was extremely well done, and the more I think about it, the more I like it. I also really enjoyed the horror elements to this. Super, super creepy. So it's getting a 4 star from me mostly because of pacing, but I had the best time with it, and I cannot wait to read book 2. The last book that I read was The Poisoner by Ivy Ophelia. The audiobook for this, incredible. Absolutely listen to the audiobook if you were interested, but it's about a vampire that gets his sights set on a woman that helps to poison other men, and he is determined that he is going to get her. I liked the stalker creepy vibes. I really enjoyed their cat and mouse dynamic. I wish the cat and mouse had lasted a little longer than it did, but I did like that part of it. I just needed it to find the plot a little sooner. It found the plot like at the very, 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 very end, and the middle really lulled for me to the point where I cared less when the plot finally came in. But I do really enjoy like the writing. I think that the atmosphere was well done. I liked the characters, and I'm excited to see where the second book goes. So that one got a 3.5 star. So that is all of the books that I read in the month of May. It was a great reading month. Let me know if you've read any of these down in the comments below and what you thought of them. If you just want to let me know that you were here and hanging out, leave me a feather for Windweaver. If you want to see any of the vlogs from Escape the Readathon, I will leave them up on the screen for you guys to check out. As always, thank you so very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.